Public Safety and Transportation Committee meeting. Present on the committee is myself, Mr. Silver, Mr. Lawson. Item number 1 on the agenda is to hear an update report from the administration concerning the maintenance of speed humps. And I must say, over the last few weeks, there have been some concerns from community groups and residents about the needs for repair. In some areas, as we know, they have been taken out. In some areas, they have been damaged. And so with that said, I would like to hear from the administration at this time.
Mr. Johnson, I'm going to respond to that. I also have Ms. Muriel Lawson, the Public Works Director, present, as well as the Superintendent of Traffic, Teresa Allen, to answer any questions that you may have. But as you recall, about a year ago, it was the administration's policy that we were not going to install additional speed humps throughout the city. And that was based on recommendations from both the Public Safety Divisions and the Public Works Division. In the past, when speed humps were initiated, they were using asphalt to create the humps, and it was very expensive. It required approximately 6 additional staff people and additional equipment. So the Traffic Division was instructed to look for other alternatives that were less expensive. And probably about 4 years ago, they identified some bars that are placed in the streets and bolted or glued down to the pavement as a cheaper alternative. Those bars are about $145 a piece, and depending on the width of the street, it requires anywhere from 2 to 4 bars to reach across the width of the street. The problem with those bars is that you can't keep them down on the street. We've tried all kinds of different adhesives, glues. We've tried bolting them down, but with the repeated traffic going over the bars, the vibration waddles the bolts out, and it waddles a hole larger in the street so that the bolt can't be replaced. And at this point, we have no budget for continued speed hump program, and we are removing the speed humps as they come up and become dislodged. So if anyone has a complaint about a speed hump that needs to be removed because it's loose, they need to call the Traffic Division, and they'll send someone out to either reattach it if it's possible to reattach it or to remove it.
Mr. Lawson has a question.
What about, which I think has been effective, I hadn't seen the statistics on the frequency of accidents since they place these strips on Horseshoe, what comes to mind, near the Deerfield subdivision. Doesn't that kind of caution you, doesn't make you slow down?
The rumble strips are a great alternative when it comes to warning a person that an intersection they are approaching an intersection and that they'll need to prepare to stop. Rumble strips are not very expensive, and once you get them down, they do stay down. We place those at that intersection. I think it's North Drive and Horseshoe, and so far so good. As far as using those for speed humps, they're really not a viable alternative to replace speed humps. What we have come up with as the best alternative to deter speeding is the Traffic Division has a speed sensory device, and I think it was placed out on Jackson Street about a week ago. People may have seen it. And it tracks the speed, it identifies the speed of oncoming traffic. If the speed limit is 25 and you're traveling 35, that speed will flash up on the little sign. It also collects data, and we can go back and analyze the data, and if we determine that we have a great increase in speeding between certain hours, we can send the police department out to use radar and write citations, and that's actually the best way to deter speeding.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, we have an increased number of police officers now. I know it works for me. If you see a police car, you slow down naturally. I just hope we don't forget about the basics.
Absolutely, and I talked to Chief Kuti earlier today. I think he told me we write about 2,000 traffic tickets a month.
We've written 12,000 tickets for 2007, over 12,000.
Oh, so about 1,000 tickets a month for traffic violations. And if we can identify peak periods when speeders are frequenting an area, then we can have a motorcycle officer out there with a radar gun, and that certainly will deter it.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Marshall?
I understand the situation with the speed bumps. My only question is that if the public or a particular street submits petitions and all the people in that particular block sign petitions requesting them, why is it that we can't do the will of the people that elected us? And what I'm saying is to you is that the will of the people have spoken when they said that they wanted them in their street, in their particular block, because you're going block, most of them are block by block or whole streets. And I thought we were supposed to be serving the people.
Well, we do have an obligation to serve the people, but we also have an obligation to do the best for all the people, and for as many people that are in favor of speed humps, there are that many plus more that are not in favor of speed humps. Number one, we don't have it budgeted. We have nothing in the budget to continue a speed hump program, but there are many reasons for discontinuing the use of the program, and it starts with the fact that when you place speed humps on one street, it simply diverts the traffic to the next street over, and it doesn't really deter speeders through a neighborhood. They're simply going to use another street. There's no statistical data available to show that it really prevents accidents.
Well,
There also...
I understand where you're coming from, but however, most of the speed humps are requested in a lot of the neighborhoods to deter, not to deter speeders, but also to keep some of the undesirable elements out of the neighborhoods.
Well,
And some of the neighborhood organizations feel that they need it. And they didn't want them, they wouldn't have signed petitions for them.
I don't understand how it would keep undesirables out of a neighborhood. The purpose of a speed hump is simply to cause people to slow down their traffic calming devices. And there are so many cons versus few pros. They delay response time for emergency vehicles. The fire department reported to me that to get a fire truck over the speed humps, they have to slow down to 15 miles per hour. The data also shows that because of the continued braking and accelerating, it increases fuel consumption, it adds to air pollution and to noise pollution, and it does damage to vehicles. It's a continued maintenance problem for the Public Works Division, and those are all the factors that we considered. There's no data that shows that in our city that it's preventing accidents. In fact, last year, in 2007, there were only 3 pedestrian accidents in the city that we were able to identify, and none of those occurred in a residential area where speed humps would have been appropriate. One of those occurred downtown. You're all familiar with that case. It was Mr. Alban Provosti. Another one of those accidents occurred early in the morning when it was still dark and it was pouring down rain over by Walker Oldsmobile, and the third occurred on Highway 1. So those were all 3 areas where speed humps were not appropriate. They're not preventing accidents in neighborhoods.
Mr. Silver, you ready?
Well, I have 2 things to observe. One, I've spoken with people from the fire and police department and sanitation. They said that economically it's been detrimental to the effectiveness of their equipment because it does damage. Recently, we put some lights where Walker had their spot with the humps. What it did is deterred acceleration, speed, and accomplished what we wanted to do, as exemplified by what you're doing with the stop signs. As far as that argument, it's undesirable to keep the the street. I don't know how the hell that works out, because you drive a car, you go over a hump or not go over a hump.
Well, at the same time, Harry, but it also, it slows down the traffic and kids out in the streets playing in some neighborhoods in the parks. At the same time, it does have an effect. If you're in a low-income neighborhood, it does have that effect. But you know, it's one of those situations whereas, number one, folks that elected us to office and signed petitions to the city for them.
If only had
Mr. Lawson.
2 to 3
We
weeks
threw it.
ago.
I guess I want to, again, reiterate, that we're moving the speed humps. If we can call, the citizens can call the police department, and the police department can monitor that street, I think to be effective. And I'm saying that because I think you look at Mayor Butler, they do a pretty good job of giving you reason not to speed. And I think if we create a history, I mean, most folks know the Hill Street area. You don't go down there. We need to create a history that if you speed on our streets, that you're going to be ticketed. And I think we are increasing the resources within our police department. I hope that we can activate what I think is the most effective element, which is a presence of force within the neighborhoods. And the sheriff, based on what I'm hearing, subscribes to patrolling within the city too. And hopefully they'll be able to create some synergy.
What's the recommendation coming from the committee based on discussion from the administration and council on this committee?
Was it just discussion?
Governed by the recommendation of the administration?
Yeah, I think it was just discussion.
Yeah, any other questions? If not, at this time, I would like to recognize Mr. Lawson for another item under public safety concerning public safety among youth.
Oh, we were talking earlier, and Mr. Johnson, I know there was a concern about some of the things that happened at the mall. My thing was just to get back on top of the recreation piece. I know we spent a lot of dollars. We have $3 million, I think, appropriated now to spend on our youth, but I think we need to look at alternatives. There's no more merry-go-rounds that attract kids and seesaws to playgrounds anymore, but I'd like to see something. I know our recreation, what's our group, AREP, is working on some things, but I'd like to see an accelerated approach to seeing what we can offer. I'm looking at Mr. Dupar, who's been instrumental with baseball. But we've got to. I think we spend a decent amount, but I don't think a sufficient amount of money on recreation. I'd like to see our youth council activated and to tell us what we can do. Another thing, Mayor and my colleagues, whether it's an ordinance that needs to be enacted or whatever we need to do, I have a problem with 8-year-olds running around the mall unescorted. And I think we need to address that, and what appropriate age is to have a child unattended to, not only in the mall, any shopping facility. I think that's bad parenting, quite frankly. And I think if we need to deal with anybody, it's the parents who would drop a child off in the mall with all the exposure that they can be exposed to. But that's my position. So between this meeting, maybe another one, I think we're going to have to address that.
Mr. Lawson, I think that's a great point. We've talked about that, and unfortunately in the limited space that is available in newspaper print, we talk a lot about those things and only so much gets out, but at the same time of balancing the need and not overreacting to smaller problems, what happened the other day was a big problem, and it highlights those concerns you have. I think that our approach was to let the private ownership tell us first, since they're in the best position to do so, what they need. But I believe 100% in what you're saying, that the city has a role and must step forward if there aren't some immediate concerns being met, because we have an obligation primarily to provide for the safety of people shopping. And then only secondarily is it about what we know malls are for, and that is to allow folks sort of a public square. Malls have always been treated that way in this country, and so I think that's important, but we have to provide for public safety first.
I would like to thank the mayor and Councilman Lawson for those comments in regards to that incident.
Harry.
Okay, Harry, Mr. Silver.
I want to address the thing about the mall, because you were quoted this morning as walking around the mall and observing certain things. I've been there for 37 years. We have thousands of people there every day. This involved about maybe 20, 25 people over a period of about 5 hours. The people who have owned it have invested several hundred millions of dollars, and they don't want to jeopardize what they've got. So obviously, they're going to do everything they can to be certain that they can address this problem, and with the support of the Alexandria Police, the Sheriff's Department, and ourselves, I think that will be resolved. Many times the media blow these things out of proportion, and you mentioned you're worried about the youth 8 to something. You know, they can go from there up to 40, depending on who the people are. So it's not as bad as you think. Biggest thing is to recognize the problem and address it. And I have every confidence in Radiant Partners doing just that, and we spoke with them as recently as today and said if there's anything that we can do to help, we would be glad to do it. Kuti said he would be glad to help. So did Mr. Wagner. It's not a bad city. We'll work it out, and everything will be okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Silver. At this time, I would like to call forward Mr. Marcus Cannella, who has addition. We don't have a utility committee today, but he does have a couple of fact sheets he would like to introduce to council at this time.
Mr. Johnson, I have 3 agenda item fact sheets to introduce. One is an ordinance for the acceptance of a 10-foot wide utility servitude located in Lot 9 and 10 of Commercial Center Subdivision, Phase 4. In order to provide electric utility services to the new Sonic Drive-In on North Mall Drive, a 10-foot wide utility servitude is required within Lot 9 and 10 of Commercial Center Drive Subdivision, Phase 4. The owners are dedicating this property, are dedicating this servitude, and I recommend acceptance by the council.
Okay, can we get a motion second recommend?
I move. I just got a question.
Second?
Who's second at this time?
I move.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cannell, question?
Should we not have the servitudes and everything in order prior to granting a permit?
A permit? Well, I mean, sometimes, especially in residential subdivision development, I mean, those servitudes aren't even dedicated to the plats are filed. So sometimes that's really not even a means that can happen when you start giving out permits. But it is something we can look into.
Because I think it would put them in a precarious situation. Let's say this fails. Wouldn't that?
Well, we'd have to find another way to route the electricity. That's
what I'm
for
saying.
sure.
And I know it's ambitious maybe to do it in all cases, but I think it's probably appropriate where we can to make sure those servitudes are probably at least granted where possible. We don't want to stunt economic development, but by the same token.
And Mr. Lawson, I can certainly bring that up in the development meetings that we have biweekly. I have a resolution authorizing the City of Alexandria Water Department to accept, maintain, and operate proposed water improvements for Oakmont Village Apartments. City Council is requested to adopt a resolution authorizing Water Department to accept water improvements consisting of 1,220 linear feet of 6-inch C900 water mains, 2 fire hydrants, and 35 water meters. This is a requirement by the State Department of Health and Hospitals for their permitting process.
Can I get a motion second that we accept this?
Are you just introducing it?
Yes, sir. It's a resolution.
Okay.
It's something that has to be done for any water main extension in the city.
Where is Oakmont?
It's off of Hudson.
That's what I thought I might have. You got to understand.
Okay.
I would normally prefer giving a little lead time on these things so we can study it on the agenda, but I guess you ran out of time or something.
Well, this is a developer request. This is why they're introduced tonight.
Okay.
Same thing would apply to them.
This is exactly.
I would suggest we start doing that, otherwise we don't know what we're doing.
I so move. You second, Mr. Silver? Okay, send it for the council. Okay. Okay, thank you. You have one more?
Yeah, acceptance of a 20-foot wide utility servitude and access servitude located in Oakmont Village Apartments, situated on Hudson Boulevard in the city of Alexandria. In order to provide utility services and other city services to Oakmont Village Apartments, a 25-foot wide utility servitude and access servitude is required
to be dedicated by the city, to be dedicated to the city by the owner. I recommend acceptance of the servitude.
I so move, recommend to full council.
Abstain. Here a second.
Anything else, Mr.?
That's it.
Do we have anything else? Any other questions, concerns to come before this committee at this time? If not, I move that this meeting is adjourned.
Legal committee would come to order. Present on committee is myself, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Lawson. We have one item that's to consider final adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 4 of the Alexandria City Code pertaining to alcohol beverage control law, and it's book item number 19. And I turn it over to Mr. Guest.
Mr. Hobbs, thank you very much, gentlemen. For a number of months, the Rapides Parish Sales and Use Tax Office has worked, as you know, on the formation and finalization of a uniform alcohol beverage chapter for the parish and for related jurisdictions, including other municipalities, the purpose being to have some uniformity among the provisions, both for fees as well as requirements. Here today are representatives from the Sales and Use Tax Office, including Mr. Joey Vircher, who I will ask to speak briefly to you to explain the uniform nature of this and the new intention of both the State Alcohol Beverage Control Board and the Rapides Parish Tax Administrator's Office to allow caterers to perform a service including the sale of alcoholic beverages. In order to accomplish these purposes, the majority of the chapter on alcoholic beverages was rewritten. And in the rewriting of the chapter sections, many of the city's provisions were retained, and in fact, Ms. Andrews and her staff recommended that the Rapides Parish Police Jury adopt many of the provisions. We are not making any significant changes beyond creation of the catering provisions. For instance, the hours of operation here in Alexandria will stay the same. We do go to some more uniformity among our fees and charges. I would like for Mr. Vircher just to come up and give some just very brief overview so the public is aware. I will tell the council that in the draft that the legal department has prepared, we anticipate this city ordinance being effective on either the mayor's signature or by March the 1st. Mr. Vercher, you want to explain any additional information?
Actually, I don't. The only thing I would like to add is, first of all, Ms. Andrews asked me to be here on her behalf. Well, here she is now. She just walked in at the perfect time. She was in Baton Rouge earlier today. As Mr. Gist explained, Ms. Andrews' office, the sales tax office, has worked on this probably for over 2 years to bring uniformity to the entire parish. We modeled the ordinances basically off of the city ordinance. It was in very good shape, and the fees basically stay the same. Hours of operation stay the same. I think with that, I'd open it up if you have any particular questions, that maybe we can answer them.
And Ms. Andrews will come up at the same time.
And this was all brought about, it was highlighted by Mr. Gist. The state allowed local governments to expand the law to include caterers. A caterer that was in the city of Alexandria may be prohibited from going and catering an event at Coteal Lake, or just the opposite may happen. And it was allowing for some inadequacies in the law, and law enforcement agencies was having trouble between the sheriff's department and the city police in administering some of that.
Ms. Andrews?
Be glad to try to answer any questions or clear up any questions that the council may have on the ordinance. We're just trying to bring some uniformity, equality of applicants to everyone who's
On the caterers, I didn't quite catch all that. Does that mean that they basically have a parish license that they'll be able to operate?
They will have.
What about in the places where they're not allowed?
Where it is
alcohol
not
sales?
permissible by law, local option election, if it's dry, they will not be allowed to cater in those areas. They will have a caterer's
serve alcohol.
license. For instance, if it's a caterer within Alexandria, they'll have a caterer's license from Alexandria, and they will be permitted to cater functions in any area that is wet that we collect for.
There's some reciprocity in the
They can
between the
cater
ordinances.
anywhere, they just can't serve alcohol where it's not allowed.
Well, they'll be able to serve alcohol where it is allowed, where it is
No, but you
permissible.
made a statement a minute ago, they will not be able to
Yeah.
cater.
They'll be able to cater and
but
handle
not serve.
alcohol.
Okay, okay.
Is that for sale or free?
That's either one.
So then, as long as you have a special permit,
Yes, a caterer's permit in addition to their regular license.
I guess the insurance agent's coming out in me. Do we have any liability requirements? I'm thinking about host liquor liability stuff. And we're affording people opportunity to sell at, I guess it would be special events. Do we have any minimal requirements of those folk to carry some type of liability insurance?
Mr. Lawson, I think...
I'm not trying to sell it because I don't sell it. Let's make that clear.
I think I would be able, I think I can answer that. In the current provisions of our ordinances, which are continued, on those special events like city-sponsored events, or even special events where three-day permits are secured by someone, the mayor can stipulate conditions, and the conditions may include the presence of uniformed city policemen. That's just an example. They may include the requirement for reasonable insurance. The mayor would have those discretions from time to time, depending on the circumstance.
And I guess what I'm looking at, I do understand and appreciate the liability that you can encounter if you're selling liquor to someone. That person goes out there and plasters someone, and here we are, we granted a license to someone to sell alcohol at a special event. I'm just wondering if we're handling our fiduciary responsibility and making sure that person would be covered along the lines of at least some type of minimum form of liability.
There's two separate issues. One, the caterer's permit, and one, a special event permit. The caterer's permit is something that's been allowed by state law. The special event permit, as Mr. Gist has explained, is something that's going to be specific to the city ordinance and can be regulated through its commission.
Maybe we need to look at that.
Well, one of the things too, you see with a caterer today, the reason a caterer cannot serve alcohol is because the state law up until recently has provided, for instance, a restaurant. They have to serve the alcohol at the premises of the restaurant. If that restaurant wanted to cater, they could not serve alcohol at an event in the city.
That is correct.
This is intended to reach that scenario. There are some state requirements.
Repeat that again.
Okay.
So if you sell alcohol in your restaurant right now,
And you have what's called an R license, which is restaurant license. If you have an R license now, you are not allowed to cater with alcohol being served off of your premises because of the state laws. A caterer is not supposed to be able to serve alcohol at an event. I'm not talking about in somebody's home. I'm talking about at a public
Special event
event.
or something, yeah.
This law will allow that to happen. To qualify as a caterer, there are similar qualifications, as I understand from Ms. Andrews, as the other license holders have to have.
That's correct.
They can't be a convicted felon, they can't be violating laws. And Mr. Lawson, we have a provision that Chief Cootie addresses for people that violate the laws, violate these alcohol license privileges. We can revoke and suspend. Those provisions are being retained. And if we do have some problems, we can revoke or suspend. And of course, as you know, we even have a policy now that points are added up for people that sell repeatedly to minors or that engage in other infractions. We can take away a license basically for 2 years.
Mr. Guest, based on that permit based on the time period is for only that event itself.
Well, yes, there's actually 3 different things Ms. Andrews would tell you about. The A and B license and R license holders are for premises, like a grocery store, a convenience store, or a restaurant. Those licenses usually stay in effect for 1 year, and they allow the sale at those premises. The caterer's permit allows a caterer for the license lasts for 1 year, and the caterer may actually engage in different activities. Under the state law and under the parish law, as well as this proposed ordinance, a caterer, and there's a number of qualifications, but a caterer must give the tax administrator 3 days' notice of any event he or she is planning on catering in advance of the event. Now, that's a state law. We're not creating that requirement. And that event can only itself last 3 days. So they have to first give the tax administrator 3 days' notice. And second, they have to realize that that event can only last like a 3-day weekend for some of our special projects. Now, that's a caterer's permit. Now, when we deal with the special event permit, that you are correct, that's a one-time matter, which, let's say queuing on the red, which is our city-sponsored event, that's a special event in which a special permit can be granted. It doesn't have to be a caterer, it can be a special event permit. That's a one-time event. The license is only good at that location or specified location, and the event can only last 3 days, I think.
That's correct.
That is correct.
Right. And, once that event's over with, if there's another special event, the person would have to apply again for that permit license. Yes, sir.
Now, under special events, would you consider it's like a bar, club, holding a function on the outside?
We addressed that too. Ms. Andrews and I worked on that, and we provided that if there was on 3rd Street, we've had these several events in recent years. If the 3rd Street merchants wanted to get together and there was an event that wasn't a city-sponsored event, okay, it was an event put on by 3 or 4 of the restaurants and establishments on 3rd Street, they could apply for a special event permit. They would have to give 3 days' notice. They would have to get a written permit for that event from the mayor. Now, the mayor on those special events may condition an event, say merchants wanting to put let's just call it a May Day festival. I'm just making this up as an illustration. If they wanted to have a May Day festival or a St. Patrick's Day festival, for instance, they would have to come and secure from the mayor a special event permit waiver. That permit waiver could be conditioned by the mayor with public safety in mind. If he felt that there were going to be 500 people attend the event, and he wanted 8 police officers, and I'm sure the mayor's going to talk to the chief about some of these things, the mayors could condition that permit on those conditions. Now, if he put a condition on there on the event holder that they secure an insurance for that special event, Ms. Andrews will not issue that special event permit until she's satisfied those precedents are met. Is that a fair way of putting that?
Yeah.
But the liquor license and everything, they would have to apply for a special license.
No, that's what we think we're trying to avoid.
Just a
Correct.
special event.
The special event permit, right.
I just want to see us tweak it a little bit more to cover ourselves potentially, that we're giving someone a permit and they ought to have some type of responsibility in making sure they're covered if they have one of their employees that's selling alcohol to someone that's inebriated already. And this ordinance does not protect against that.
Well, are you talking about anyone selling alcohol?
You got small vendors. I mean, it depends on where you're going with it, but you got small vendors. Process. If it's just an event for a weekend and you got to come up with insurance plus all this other stuff, you're gonna really cripple them. If, if it's a small deal now, we got to start to look at it.
Well, what they do is that chances are if it's a catering event, they can have, they probably have some type of general liability. What they want to add is something like a host liquor liability or something of that nature to it, but
it doesn't matter to Ms. Andrews y'all could put that on.
That's fine. I just again, this is harder to control than being able to sell liquor in 1 hour establishment and sell liquor and making sure nobody walks out and gets in their car with a cup. I mean, you can't control this.
Mr. Lawson, it would not be difficult for us to put in the caterers, you're talking about in the caterers section.
Yeah, but look at it before we just do a knee jerk, but I'm talking on the catering side. That's the chances are who's most.
And also, I was looking at it, where I'm going with mine is festivals and stuff, that hurt the small vendor.
I could include it in specials and
Once you look at it, maybe come back with a recommendation.
I will, and I do have some more legal stuff to go over with on this. Okay, all right. If there are no more questions of Ms. Andrews and Mr. Vercher, we would appreciate their time and service, and I would point out to the City Council that this is Mr. Vercher's probably last appearance, as he has been with the Sales and Tax Office for how many years?
25.
And 25, and
26.
Friday he is going to go to greener pastures as he has decided to try and retire. So Ms. Andrews has already told me she's going to miss his services.
Joy
I got
is a
3 or 4
great
jobs though, Trey, you know that.
Joy is a great asset out there. I had a pleasure working with Joy and Ms. Andrews when she was appointed to replace Mr. Brown. So congratulations, Joy.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank y'all.
And now if I could turn my attention to several things too, Mr. Lawson, so that, and y'all may want to listen, and we've got some amendments anyway to the ordinance that we've worked on, and we may want to consider these amendments. So if you will allow me to go through this a little bit. With the original title, the legal department went through the ordinance, and we have before you, and it's in each book, we have, there should be in your book, is this correct?
Item number 19.
In item number 19, you could follow along with me briefly. I want to point out that the Rapids Parish Tax Administrator's Office and the City Legal Department worked on the ordinance. When you see the 2 pages in bold in the title, with the legal department, we simply took the section heads of each section that we're amending, and we set these out so that y'all would be able to see it. It's also required in part because some of the statutes and ordinances have very specific penalties for violation if for instance, if you sell to minors, if you allow your establishment to go beyond the hours, the regular hours of sale, there's some $500 fines that can be put in here, in addition to some other penal provisions. So those provisions are reflected. If the legal department recommends that the ordinance be amended in the sense that the title be amended as set out in your books, and with the one additional change that the city's Alcohol Beverage Control Commission will be noted as the Alcohol Beverage and Drug Abuse Control Commission. Because I think everyone, Mr. Everett Hobbs pointed out to me that there is some drug abuse here by the commission, and that is a very important component. If I could turn to the general sections that we've amended, again, Mr. Hobbs and gentlemen of the committee, many of these provisions are simply identical to the existing provisions, but we have simply put them into new section numbers. Again, the tax administrator is the Rapides Parish Tax Administrator in the parish. The Alcohol, Beverage, and Drug Abuse Control Commission is retained, simply being renamed. It has those functions that currently exist. It consists of 5 members. Those members sit periodically. That board will advise the mayor on complaints regarding permit applications for new businesses, Class A, B, and R, as set out in Section 4.14. Will advise the mayor on the issuance of orders setting fines or for the suspension or revocation of permits issued to persons engaged in the business of dealing alcoholic beverages, both low and high contents. And the third paragraph, which I just added today after speaking with Mr. Hobbs, that commission will also advise both the mayor and the city council on alcohol, beverage, and drug abuse issues that from time to time may come up and come to the attention of the commission. It was thought that this would give both citizens and some of our city departments the opportunity to address some of the alcohol and drug use issues at some of the establishments. The scope of the chapter continues to be obviously regulating alcoholic beverages and has certain exceptions that have been carried forward. Again, Section 4.3, hours of operation. The city has its own hours. We are retaining those hours from 6 a.m. daily until 3 a.m. the following day, Monday through Sunday. That has a special penalty, and I think I mentioned this, of $500 if there is a violation.
Mr. Lawson, was this a yes or no question?
Yeah.
You do know Trey is paid by the hour.
I was wondering, he's going over.
Well,
I thought he was going to stop at that comma. He's trying to stop at the period now. I wanted him to stop at the comma, but he's stopping at the period.
the point is, it will take an amendment from what's been introduced. We really need to consider an amendment as presented before you today to adopt the ordinance as amended first. And then, before we vote on the entire amendment for final passage, I would suggest if Mr. Lawson wants us to consider this additional requirement.
He's the chair of legal.
I understand.
Yeah, but you know the other requirement.
Mr. Hobbs, I think that it would be germane. I think I've touched on everything, including special event permits, the caterers permits, but I do think that...
Touched on everything except flavoring, extracts, syrups, and food products.
Those are exempt. But the legal department does believe that the first thing you need to do is adopt the amendment as is currently worded before you, and as the administration made that one change on the name of the commission. And if we could have that amendment adopted first, and then we could discuss the general nature of this if the council or if the committee is interested in another amendment, we can certainly...
With the caveat as suggested by Mr. Gist.
A second.
Amendment.
A second.
All in favor? Yeah.
Okay. I need a motion on the original and discussion.
Unless you want to do some additional amendments. If you want to wait.
Why don't you wait?
No, you can come back on that so we can have some dialogue on that.
I can do that perhaps by the main meeting if you
Okay.
wish me to. And if you want to refer the matter as amended to the council, Mr. Hobbs, if you would like to refer the present matter to the floor as we just amended it, I will work with the administration in the interim between now and the main meeting or whatever time is necessary.
One thing I'd like to say is that, you know, the commission that we got set up is that we reenact them, because I don't,
Yeah.
if, they've been meeting, done anything in the last year or so.
The mayor is looking into that. This commission, like other commissions, serves at the pleasure of the mayor. I think that it's the intention of the administration to get the commission back up to speed, and I think the mayor's going to contact those older members, and then if there are new members that need to be added, the council, by the way, has to concur in new members. So,
Yeah, because I think it's something big, and if those members, you know, choose not to come back, then I guess we can suggest it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And,
Trey, can we know a history of like Nevada law and maybe some other states and how they look at?
this is
I was wondering.
normally, Mayor,
Want to read War and Peace up here?
Normally, Mayor, and I forget I'm doing this on television sometimes, but normally we deal with one or two sentences. This was a very comprehensive revision of the chapter on alcoholic beverages that was undertaken by Ms. Andrews and her staff, and we wanted to make sure it's done right, in part because it's certainly the intention of this council and this administration to enforce these penalties, and there's going to be some people, if they violate these rules, the mayor's going to tell you and the chief's going to tell you, they're going to have to do some explaining.
You're pontificating.
but you know, we can expand it, and I know we're gonna revisit this, because in the last couple of weeks, our chief.
Mr. Hayes is here.
Yeah. About
The chief retired, he's at,
He's in the bottom.
the different drug paraphernalia that's been selling them.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe if we put the teeth back in that, and probably the commission, but we really don't have anything.
We passed something a few years ago, about 2 years ago. on that.
Well, for instance, Mr. Hobbs, this commission could meet and hear from both the merchants as well as concerned citizens, and if the commission, which is going to be other concerned citizens, thinks a recommendation to this body is appropriate for some rules and regulations that ought to be applicable in this city, they can make those determinations.
Well,
I think that's an excellent idea of yours, Mr. Hobbs. They told me that y'all wanted to do that this morning, and Trey met with me about adding the drug aspect to it. I think that's a great idea from the council, and we wholeheartedly support that.
Any other questions? I'll work on those other issues. Thank you very much.
One other question. Do you know the words yes and no?
I got to beat up on Trey today.
Yes, but sometimes, Mr. Fowler, I don't want to be accused of not deliberating something that the general public needs to know about.
he spun it back on you.
I knew I should have.
My 7th grade teacher told me I was quite vociferous. I had to look it up, Trey.
Well, and I'm going to say this for the benefit of
the
the council members. The chair, Mr. Marshall's been very quiet, but the chair is adamant about enforcement of some of
He
these.
hadn't been quiet. You didn't hear him. He's been asleep.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Any other business?
That's it.
Economic development.
This will be very short and sweet. Okay, call to order Economic Development Committee meeting. Members present, yours truly, Mr. Silver and Mr. Johnson. Item number 1 is to hear an update report from the administration on curing on the red. Looks like everything's falling in order. Lisa was, there she is, with a Red Bull in her hand. She's been working so hard. But She's been working hard and quite proud of what Curing on the Red is turning into. It's been a few years, and I think it's certainly a festival to be reckoned with. At this time, we'll hear from our illustrious Director of Community Service, Ms. Lisa Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. I just wanted to, let me update you on, first of all, the team count that we have to date. For the last 2 years, we've been lucky to have, we've maintained our team count of 33. At this point, we have 23 teams that have signed up. Our deadline is this Friday, the 29th, for team participation. So between now and then, I hope we get the 10 more to bring us up to our 33 count that we've had for the last 2 years. And just to FYI, we do have several local teams, and we have some that are coming from Tennessee, Texas, and Mississippi. So we're still pulling those teams, the MBM teams from across the U.S. So hopefully we'll have our 10 by this Friday. And as you know, we do have a kids component to our competition as well. So we are still looking for kids, and that is ages 8 to 14. If anyone is interested, there's 2 categories that the kids can participate in, and that's pork, which are pork chops, or chicken. So we're still recruiting for team participation for the kids as well. Also, I want to bring you up to speed, and I'm happy to announce that we have a number of community partners who have joined with us this year. For the last 2 years, GATA has been a partner with us, and they provide us funding for to advertise our festival. And we are working to advertise in not only the Alexandria area, but we're going statewide with the help of the Lieutenant Governor's office. They have committed funding also as well to help us advertise. So we're looking to expand into Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and North Louisiana. We already have billboards that are up going into the Texas area, Dallas, and also in the Lake Charles area. I think it's in Iowa that we placed the billboards there. And we're still advertising with the billboards in Natchez and Arkansas as well. So we're trying to pull from as many areas as possible. There are other local community partners here that have agreed to work with us. We do have 2 new ones this year, and Super One Foods, we're happy to say, have joined on with us. They actually have a team as well as sponsorship with us this year. So we're happy to have those sponsors be a part of the festival this year. It's a hard job, but it's a fun job. I mean, I'm meeting a lot of people, and my staff and I, we're full force in trying to bring this to fruition in 3 weeks. We have our musical lineup set for us now. We have acts that are covered from R&B to Zydeco to country, you name it, we have it, and we've tried so hard to make sure that we provide that variety. And gate admission is $5 this year. The festival gates open at 4 o'clock on Friday and 10 a.m. on Saturday. So we encourage everyone to come out and participate. If you have any questions about the festival, I'll be happy to answer those now.
Lewis has a bunch of family coming. We got to be careful. I understand he's booking a bunch of rooms. Gotta watch him carefully.
That's that Houston crowd. Lisa.
Yes, sir.
I noticed one of the signs on I-10 when I was coming back from Houston. And it's on the wrong side of the highway. I'm serious. Great big billboard on the westbound side facing the eastbound traffic.
Okay.
Okay, I'm totally discombobulated now.
Yeah. I was too, because it was, unless, if you're going down I-10, heading to Alexandria, taking exit 44, if you look out your left side of your automobile across the interstate, you see the sign.
Well, and so the sign is actually facing the traffic going into Texas.
Right, going into Texas.
Correct. Well, and that's what we want to, the people who are going back home to Texas, we wanted to, that's what we're trying to advertise.
You missed me. It's facing the people going into Louisiana, but it's on the opposite side of the highway.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it because I knew where it was. No, what I'm saying is, if I'm coming to Alexandria. I'm sorry. I'm coming to Alexandria, and for the first time, not knowing, that sign was irrelevant to me.
I understand. And I will talk with Lamar Advertising to see exactly where they placed it. These were the signs that we placed.
It's just the positioning of it.
Yeah.
I'm on my way here, coming from Texas to Louisiana. I want to get off at exit 44. I should have a sign there at exit 44 or near exit 44 telling me to get off. I couldn't read it over there.
I heard from one of the kids at one of the high schools that said they'd like to compete. We don't really have the high schools competing. That would have been an interesting thing.
Yeah, the kids cook-off is actually from ages 8 to 14, so actually it cuts it off basically at
different
a
high
freshman.
schools.
Yeah, we probably need to look at
And I would sponsor,
expanding
for
that.
instance, my high school, and I bet you we can get some other sponsors or
Yeah.
something.
Okay, and the kids competition is fairly new, so we're looking, we'll take suggestions on how we can improve that.
He'll sponsor Bolton. The mayor will sponsor Menard, so you got a bunch of sponsorships up here.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Don't matter.
Okay, any other
As
questions?
long as you pay for it, I don't care.
Mr. Hobbs? Okay, yeah. Okay. Any other business need to come before economic development? I think, Mayor, did you have a comment on something that's been creating a lot of attention lately for some strange reason?
Yes, Mr. Lawson, there was some reporting that was done in the newspaper, and I hope that this is not being fomented from some information that I received about information on a blog site. While I think blogs are, of course, a freedom that we enjoy and folks can get away with a whole lot of things on them, the other side of that is they're anonymous, as we all know, and people can kind of say some things that maybe aren't fully backed up. And so I've received some information about a particular issue, and you always risk highlighting it more, and people will make assumptions about that, highlighting. But Mr. Lawson, I think, especially for me and you, because we've been singled out on that, I would like to point some things out to you. And I haven't talked to you about this, but I think that you need to know. There was some information most recently in the newspaper about it, and it has to do with KJA Communications Corporation, or group that is a company that has been in this city for some time, and apparently is being sort of thrown around in a way that I think isn't really accurate in regard to both the website and the city's Channel 4. Under ordinance number 386-2003 and 387-2003, this council in 2003 authorized work on both the enhancement of the city's government access channel and on the website of the city, and it spells out in detail what that would include. And it includes city government airing of services, city facilities and services, community centers, website overview, also downtown rocks, brown bag, pops on the levee, AMOA, Orna Bon Ton, performing arts, seasonal events, 12 nights of Christmas, Mardi Gras, Riverfest, Zubu, Lady Bass tournaments, Uncle Sam Jam, the Alexandria Zoo, youth leagues, hunting, fishing, golf, ACES, movie theaters, restaurants, nightlife, and shopping. And I say all that to point out that the council authorized there to be work done on both the website and Channel 4 to clear up for the public, and we should have this discussion publicly. We have talked about doing an RFP because KJA had submitted a proposal and they had one outstanding for months. Mr. Eric Hunt also submitted a proposal, and so we've decided, you and I talked, that we'd pull everything and wait until we could formulate a process by which folks partner under our AFEET program, offer opportunities to folks outside of the city, or what have you. But there has been a proliferation of information, apparently, about how all of this is part of something I think is a little, the suggestion is that it's a little bit untoward, and the fact of the matter is it's not. A couple of things to clear up. Ken Juneau, who works for the city, has no ownership interest whatsoever in KJA Communications. Like many companies that are sold lock, stock, and barrel to someone else, they keep a name because goodwill has been built into that name. And Mr. David Pugh owns KJA Communications at this point. Mr. David Pugh is a personal friend of mine. Mr. David Pugh contributed to my campaign. Mr. David Pugh has sought an agreement to provide a service where I think for many years the city considered him the only big group capable of providing those services. For the record, Mr. Eric Hunt is a good friend of mine. His wife worked for me in my law firm for many years, and I consider them personal friends. And when I learned that he was interested in applying for this too, we immediately backed up and said, hold on, let's see what's out there. For the record, Mr. Pugh has contacted me and said he would like to work with any folks in a collaborative, or see who else gets it, or compete in an RFP process, and if he doesn't get it, he doesn't get it. So I wanted to point out that this has been the subject of a lot of things that I think, with just a little bit of homework done, like a public records request to the city for the ordinances, here would be the resolutions under law of this body that allowed it to occur. Now, continuing that transparency, let me say some things I think are wrong with it. The line item that would have been created by 387-2003, which is KJA Communications doing the government access channel, budgeted a certain amount of money. Presumably, with the bill that was attached to that, in the amount of $15,167.50 back in 2003, specifically November 11, that job would have been done. But then there's maintenance that occurs. And over the years, that has happened where there would be a bill here and there under Lisa Harris's community services in her line item for that reason. And she has been, since I came on board, in charge of that. Those bills have never amounted to that, to $15,000 again, to my knowledge, and I'm continuing to check into that. I believe there's only been a few updates since then. And it highlights the real issue. What's being asked is KJA in charge, or were they, and what's been happening? I think the real issue is that we as the executive branch and council have to get together, decide what we want there, and we have to decide who would do it. But I'm going through all this, Mr. Lawson, to point out to you that there's been nothing untoward about it. In fact, the services haven't been utilized when they could have been all this time. And so if anything, I guess it's shame on the city for not using it, but it's not shame on a person who was just doing a job that is invoiced from time to time for that job. Now, I do believe that these should be the subject of cooperative endeavors that are very specific. We've had an issue that happened with LSUA. We have some other issues around the city that we've been correcting, and you and I were talking about that just the other day, of ensuring from an auditing standpoint that cooperative endeavors are in place so that everything is properly done. This, to me, probably is an audit type issue. It's not an illegality, and it's certainly not a big deal, but I think the proper thing to do is have a cooperative endeavor. But an ordinance passed by this council authorizing the expenditures out of a line item in a division head's budget for community services is perfectly permissible. There's nothing wrong with that from a legal end. So I just wanted to clear that up since it's been apparently the talk of a few folks. And on the website end, it's even clearer what would happen there, and the bills that are attached to that are here. So if anybody has an issue with this or wants to see if there's been some conspiracy, or as you put it, Mr. Lawson, diabolical plan, here it all is right here. This is a continuing effort to get some things straight. Again, if anything, we need to be utilizing the services of folks to get this done, and we want to hurry up and make sure that we allow Mr. Hunt, Mr. Pugh, or anyone else who wants to do this business, which predated my administration by 4 years, to continue to do what they can do. And if they're not the proper person, or if someone offers us a better deal, then so be it. Let them do it. But that's the whole story. And, you know, there's a lot of negative that can be associated with throwing things out in the public domain without having investigated just some basics. And I think that's important, because we have a city we want to have that's large, and we want to think big, but we still are a small community in a lot of ways. And to disparage somebody without it even being meritorious like that, I think is a shame. I really do. And so that's to set the record straight. Anybody is welcome to see it.
I'm certainly glad that you set the record straight, and I'm going to check those blogs in the morning. I'm sure they'll correct everything.
I think you slipped was one of the ones that said Chuck Fowler. No, I agree that, I don't know how that got so much attention. Mr. Pugh is aware that we're going to do an RFP. He said fine, he'd like to work if someone else gets it. He didn't kick, scream, shout, and certainly wasn't a dastardly deed that the council and certainly not the administration tried to do by opening this up. It's quite to the contrary. If you open the opportunity up, it's certainly not necessarily home cooking going on in favor of the person that may have been in line to get it.
It's just the opposite, Mr. Lawson. He could have been doing this the whole
Right.
time under this, and we were opening it up to allow more people to participate. So it's exactly the opposite of what.
Dastardly deed, it certainly failed. Anything else? Okay. Number 2 is signage. This is something that we'll get another time. What I'm interested in, I saw in another city, New Orleans, to be specific, they're putting up new signage, and it's color-coded, it references parks, it's color-coded, it references community centers, and I was meeting with the Police Jury Association. A lot of them were commending us. They saw a lot of signs, but it kind of grabs you when you see a color-coded sign or something of that nature. I just like to see something come back where we can do something that's kind of inviting and that's easy to read and easily noticeable to our citizens. How does certain establishment get an opportunity to put signs on poles? I'm curious about that.
I think you may have to ask either.
Oh, they pay for them?
They pay for them. The state
Where is it? Oh, right. So the one-way signs on the state, was this a state highway? Yeah, probably so. Okay. Thank you.
I would just voicing to Mario and to planning that we ought to at least start doing that on a trial basis in we can start in new developments and in some places and pick them out and start doing it, and then over the long haul replace some of those things. But I've seen it too, Myron, and I think that's a great idea.
All right. Any other business needs to come before economic development? Hearing none, meeting is adjourned. Directly to Finance Committee meeting. Members present, yours truly, Mr. Silver and Mr. Hobbs. Item number 1 is consider final adoption of an ordinance providing for the levy within the city of Alexandria, state of Louisiana. A 1% sale and use tax on the sale and retail, the use, the lease of, or rental of, the consumption, storage for use of consumption of tangible personal property, and upon the sale of services to the city for the assessment, collection, payment thereof, and the dedication of the proceeds of the said tax and purpose for which the proceeds of the tax may be expended, said tax having been authorized at a special election held in the city July 21st, 2007. That's book item number 20. I'll entertain a motion, and then we'll have some discussion. It's been moved, probably second by Mr. Hobbs. On the back. I'll second. Discussion. I have our finance guru and our bond guru, Mr. Grant.
Just a routine matter. It's Grant Schluter with Foley Udell Bond Counsel. Just a routine matter. It's the final adoption of the ordinance authorizing the continuation of the levy of the sales tax that was approved at the last election, and this is the continuation that's effective from its scheduled expiration June 1st of this year. So
Not a new sales tax.
it's not a new sales tax. It's just a continuation that the voters renewed overwhelmingly.
Okay. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor, aye. We'll send it to full council. Anything else needs to come before the Finance Committee meeting? Hearing none. Item number 2, meeting is adjourned.